The Kurriwilban in the Dark by Pike. Dedicated to the Awabakal and Kattang peoples of the Newcastle and Hunter region in New South Wales. Nana always said the bush changed after dark. In the daytime it was safe, a place for gum-leaf crowns and stick swords, for chasing each other through bracken until your legs itched and your lungs burned, for catching tadpoles and coming home muddy and laughing. But when the sun slid down behind the ridges, when the light sank into the valleys and the trees became silhouettes, something else woke up. Kurriwilban. Wild woman of the valley, Nana would say, her voice dropping low. Two long horns grow up from her shoulders. She walks quiet through these trees, looking for boys and little ones who don't listen. She takes them on her shoulders. She doesn't need hands. The three kids listened because the way she said it made the shadows in the corners of the room move. Jai, the eldest boy at 10, pretended he wasn't scared, staring at the TV instead of Nana's face. Mikey, 7, edged closer with every story until he sat pressed against her hip, fingers twisting the hem of her dress. The youngest, Lila, 9, watched Nana with steady eyes. She felt the fear in the room like a wind, but it never seemed to land on her. "She doesn't touch girls?" Lila asked once, breaking Nana's rhythm. Nana looked at her, searching her face for something. "Kurriwilban hunts children and men," she said slowly. "Girls she doesn't touch, not with those horns. But that doesn't mean you walk wherever you want at night." "Why?" Lila insisted. Nana's lips thinned. "Because the dark has its own law, bub. You don't want to meet all of it." They were sitting on the old couch, the fabric worn thin on the arm where Nana rested her elbow watching the news. Outside, the bush stretched away behind the little weatherboard house, fading into ridges and creeks and that one deep valley Nana never named. Somewhere in there, Leela knew, was the place Kurriwilban called home. "Promise me," Nana said, "when the sky starts going pink, you come back. You don't wander. You don't hide. The stories aren't just to scare you. They're to keep you breathing." They promised. Children always promise. For a while, they even listened. The last Sunday before school went back was hot and heavy, the kind of day where the air stuck to your skin and the only breeze came from the slow flap of crow's wings overhead. Nana's house sat quiet, the TV off, only the ticking of the clock and cicadas screaming from the trees. "Don't go too far," Nana said as they headed out, bare feet thudding on the cracked back steps. "I've got washing on. When I call you, come." Jai nodded, already scanning the yard for the footy. Mikey grabbed a stick he'd carved to look like a spear. Lila followed, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear as she stepped into the thin shade of the gum trees. Bush wrapped around them quickly, swallowing the edge of the house. The familiar track, worn by years of feet, led down the slope to the creek, then snaked along the bank through tea trees and paper barks. In the daylight, the track was a path of adventure, littered with dropped bark boats, old rope swings, and the secret base they'd made from fallen branches. "We should go further today," Jai said, flicking the ball from hand to hand. "We never go past the old log. That's for babies." Nana said, Mikey started. "Nana says lots of things," Jai cut in. "She still thinks the TV breaks if you leave it on overnight." Lila glanced up at the sun. It hung white and high, no hint of pink yet. Just a bit, she said, before she calls. The old log that stretched across the creek was their usual border. Beyond it, the track narrowed and the trees thickened, their trunks closer, their branches knitted overhead. Lila had always felt it like a doorway. Step over, and you weren't just in the bush. You were in someone's memory. Jai jogged across the log without looking down, the ball tucked under his arm. Mikey wobbled his way behind him, arms out for balance. Lila crossed last, one hand trailing along the rough bark, the other brushing aside the hanging leaves. On the far side, the air felt different, cooler in patches, warmer in others, like walking through breath. "Race you," Jai called, and took off up the narrowing track. They went deeper. The first strange thing Lila noticed was the silence. At first, she thought the cicadas had just paused, that the usual shrill wall of sound had dipped. But as they climbed into the denser bush, she realized it hadn't dipped. It had vanished. No insects, no frogs, no birds calling to each other across branches. Even the creek, now only a whisper behind them, sounded like it was being swallowed. "Jai," she called. "Slow down." He didn't. He vaulted over a fallen branch, laughing, kicking up dry leaves. Mikey puffed along behind, stick spearing at imaginary enemies. A shadow passed overhead, and Lila looked up expecting a bird. The canopy was still. Her skin prickled. The track bent left, then right, leading between taller, older trees. Their trunks were dark and scarred, with patches of missing bark that looked, if she didn't catch herself, like eyes. "Look at this," Jai said, stopping suddenly. Lila came up beside him and saw it, a tree with two long pale scars running up from the shoulders of a knot in the trunk. From the right angle, it looked like a body with horns growing upward. Mikey swallowed loudly. "Like Nana said," he whispered. "It's just old damage," Jai said. But his voice had a hitch in it. He punched the ball against his hip. "She walks with horns on her shoulders," he added, trying to sound like he was mocking the story. "So what? It's daytime." Lila checked the sky again. The sun had slid a little. The light between the branches felt thicker, harder to read. "Maybe we should," she began. Something trilled. All three of them knew the sound of birds. Magpies had their warbling song, kookaburras their cackling laughter. This sound didn't belong to any of them. It started low, barely more than a breath, then climbed into a thin, piercing note that shivered through the leaves and lodged behind Lila's teeth. It sounded too long, too sharp. Mikey went rigid. "What was that?" Jai forced a chuckle. "Just some bird." It came again, closer this time, from somewhere ahead and to the right. The note rose until it felt like it was cutting through Lila's skull, then cut off abruptly, the quiet that followed even heavier. She swallowed. "We should go back," she said. Jai turned to answer, and froze. Lila saw it at the same time, something pale between the trees, about 30 meters ahead. A shape half hidden by trunks, taller than any person they knew. No face, no details, just the impression of shoulders and two long, pale lines reaching up into the canopy. Her body wanted to run. Her feet refused. The shape disappeared as quickly as it had appeared, melting back into the trees, leaving only the shiver of leaves and that heavy, watching silence. "Did you see?" Mikey whispered. "No." Jai snapped. There was nothing. He was lying. Lila heard it in every word. They turned back. They didn't say that's what they were doing. Jai just muttered something about it being boring and started walking down the track the way they'd come. The footy clutched tighter now, his gaze locked ahead. Mikey stuck so close to Lila that she kept feeling his elbow brush hers. The track did not look the same. Where the trees had seemed familiar before, now every trunk looked wrong, every root like a hand reaching out. Small piles of bleached twigs lay beside the path in strange, deliberate shapes. Once Lila saw a cluster of bones. Tiny, light, maybe birds or lizards, arranged in a rough circle, as if someone had placed them one by one. The air smelled faintly of smoke. Jai, Lila said quietly, do you remember the way? Of course, he replied too quickly. It's just down. The track dipped, then rose, then dipped again. The creek, which should have been a steady presence at their side, sounded further away every time they tried to listen for it. The trill came again, this time from behind them. Mikey whimpered and grabbed Lila's hand. The sound climbed like before, slicing into the air, then cut off. For a heartbeat, Lila felt pressure behind her shoulder blades, like someone was standing too close without touching her. She turned. No one was there. Stop it, Jai said. But she wasn't sure who he was talking to. A whisper threaded through the trees. At first, Lila thought it was leaves rubbing together, but the words came into focus, soft and stretched, like breath against the back of her neck. Little boys, the whisper said. Little brothers, come closer. Lila tightened her grip on Mikey's hand. Don't listen, she hissed. They're just the wind, Jai said. The wind doesn't talk, Mikey whispered. The path split. Lila was sure it had been one straight track before. Now a thinner trail branched off to the right, disappearing between thicker trees, while the main track sloped left. Both looked equally worn. Neither felt safe. The whisper came again, clearly from the right, this time. Little boys. Mikey's feet shifted, almost of their own accord, as if his body wanted to follow the call. Hey, Jai said sharply, grabbing his shoulder. No, we go left. That's how we came. How do you know? Lila asked. Because I remember, he snapped. He didn't. Fear was erasing his memory. Lila could see the panic crawling under his skin like ants. We should mark it, she said, thinking of Nana's warnings about tracks and getting lost. She snatched a rock from the ground and scraped a rough cross into the nearest tree on the left path. The bark gave way with a dry rasp. See, she said, we pick one, and we remember it. The whisper laughed. It was not a big laugh, not a booming sound. It was a small, delighted chuckle, like someone had watched her carve the mark and found it amusing. Little girl, it breathed. You think marks save them? Lila's blood ran cold. She hadn't heard her own name, but the words curved around her like they knew her. Don't answer, she told herself. Don't talk back. She tugged Mikey onto the left path. Jai followed, muttering under his breath, throwing glances over his shoulder. Leaves shifted above them. Something moved through the canopy. Not like a bird hopping branch to branch, but like a weight gliding between trunks. Twice, Lila caught the suggestion of those pale horn lines overhead, running parallel with their path, always just out of clear sight. The bush was growing darker. The sun might still have been high, but down here, under this canopy, shadows filled the spaces between trees. Color drained from the bark, leaving everything in shades of brown and gray. "Jai," Mikey whispered, voice shaking. "I'm scared." "Don't be stupid," Jai said. "We'll be home soon." The whisper came again, directly in front of them now. From somewhere the path was leading. "Come play," it crooned. "I've got a valley. I've got a fire. I've got room." Mikey's steps faltered. Jai's jaw clenched. Leela's heart hammered so hard she heard it in her ears. Kurriwilban wasn't calling her. She could feel it, like the way a room's mood shifts depending on who walks in. The presence in the trees moved past her, not touching, like she was a tree or a rock. Every tug in the air angled toward Jai and Mikey. She was skin and bones, same as them, but somehow invisible. Nana's words echoed in her head. "Girls she doesn't touch. But that doesn't mean you walk wherever you want at night." It hit Lila then, sharp and cold. Kurriwilban could walk right past her, right through her, and still take her brothers. The track, if it could still be called that, dropped suddenly into a shallow gully. The dirt underfoot turned soft and dark, as if it had been scorched long ago and never fully cooled. The air smelled stronger of smoke now, with something meaty and bitter curling underneath. In the hollow, the trees stepped back a little, creating a small clearing. In the center, 3 stones jutted up like teeth. Around them lay blackened logs, as if a fire had once burned there and someone had walked away without cleaning up. Lila didn't want to step into the clearing. Every part of her body screamed to stay in the shadow at the edge. The whisper didn't. "Here," it breathed, pleased. "Here is good. Little boys, stand there." Jai shivered. "We're going around," he said, voice shaking. "There isn't another way," Lila replied. The trees packed tight on either side like a wall. "We have to cross." Mikey had gone pale, his hand sticky in hers. His eyes were fixed on the stones, unblinking. "Can you hear Nana?" he asked suddenly. Lila listened. No voice called their names from the bush behind them. No distant shout floated up from the valley where the house and yard should have been. Only that thin, high trill, now close enough that it might have been coming from the trees above the clearing. "Jai," she said softly, "we're lost." He didn't answer. Something shifted at the far side of the clearing. Lila saw it then, clearly for the first time. A figure half hidden behind the trunk of an old gum, taller than any adult she knew, the outline wrong in all the ways Nana had described. Shoulders hunched, body long and lean, and from those shoulders, 2 pale horns rising and widening as they climbed, branching like antlers but too smooth, too sharp. They weren't horns attached to a head. They were growing from the shoulders themselves, lifting toward the canopy, catching the last scraps of light and turning them sickly. The figure did not have a face she could see. The space where a face should have been was shadow, deeper than the rest of the darkness. It stepped, not toward her, toward Jai. Each movement made barely a sound, just the faint crunch of old leaves underfoot, the shift of weight that felt heavier than it looked. As it walked, The horns lifted higher, as though drawing something from the air. Lila couldn't move. Jai had gone rigid, eyes locked on the creature, his hands clenched around the footy until the leather creaked. The ball trembled. "Run," Lila tried to say. It came out a whisper. Kurriwilban paused at the edge of the clearing, her horns humming with that same thin trill. The sound vibrated against Lila's ribs. Slowly, impossibly, she tilted, one shoulder rising slightly higher, as if considering the angle of a blow. "Little boy," the whisper cooed. It came from everywhere and nowhere. "You wandered. You didn't listen. Come here." Mikey stepped forward. Lila yanked him back. "No," she snapped, the word cracking. The figure did not flicker or jump or lunge. She simply existed closer with each heartbeat, the way shadows creep across a floor when the sun moves. One blink, and she stood halfway into the clearing. Another, and she was nearer the stones. Lila saw in a flash that turned her stomach what Nana's story meant. Kurriwilban didn't need hands to take anyone. Those horns were long enough to reach out, pierce, and lift. The creature turned, not toward Lila, past her. Lila felt the movement like wind against her cheek, though there was no wind. Kurriwilban's attention slid over her as if she weren't meat, as if she were part of the ground. Then the horns angled toward Mikey. He screamed. The sound finally broke the spell, holding Lila's body. She moved. Later, Lila would try to remember exactly how it happened. She'd strain to recall each step, each breath, each noise. But the moment would always blur at the edges, like a story told 100 times, until it became something else. What she knew was this. When the horns dipped toward Mikey, she threw herself between them. She didn't think about it. She didn't weigh options. She just surged forward, dragging Mikey with her, shoving him behind her body toward Jai. The air around her felt stretched thin, like it might tear. As she moved, Kurriwilban's horns slowed. Lila felt them pass her, one sweeping arc above her shoulder. Close enough that she could hear something humming inside the bone, like trapped voices or burning sap. They did not touch her. They stopped just short of her skin, hanging in the air, trembling with the need to complete their motion. Lila smelled smoke, meat, and something older than both. The whisper hissed, "Girl!" Just that. Just the word, full of disappointment and disgust, but also a strange grudging respect. Kurriwilban straightened slightly, her horns lifting away from Lila and her brothers. For a second, the shadow where her face should have been turned directly toward Lila, as if measuring her. Lila's legs wanted to fold. Her heart hammered so hard her vision shook. She met the shadow anyway. "Nana said, 'You don't get us,'" she whispered, voice shaking. "Not today." It was a foolish thing to say. It was also the only thing that came out. The trill rose abruptly, sharp and furious, shooting into the canopy and ripping the silence like a knife. Leaves shuddered. Branches creaked. The sound was pain and anger mixed, like a scream swallowed before it could leave a mouth. Behind Lila, Jai grabbed Mikey and hauled him back. "Lila!" Jai shouted, voice cracking. "Move!" She did. She backed away slowly, hands out, pushing her brothers with her, eyes never leaving the horns. Kurriwilban stood at the center of the clearing, cords of shadow pulling tight around her body, as if she were deciding whether to break her own law for the sake of the boys behind the girl. For the first time since the trill had started, another sound cut in. "Nana!" Mikey gasped. At the rim of the gully, half hidden by scrub, a figure had appeared, smaller, older, but solid in all the ways Kurriwilban was not. Nana, hair pulled back, dress hanging loose over her thin frame, eyes wide and blazing. She scrambled down the slope, feet sure despite the loose dirt, mouth already moving. "Lila!" she shouted. "Jai! Mikey! Get here now!" The sound of her voice punched a hole in the clearing spell. It was as if someone had thrown open a door to a bright room. For a moment, the smoke-thick air felt thinner. Lila's knees nearly buckled with relief. "Go," she told her brothers. "Now." They didn't argue. Jai grabbed Mikey's arm and bolted, stumbling up the slope toward Nana. Lila followed, every step feeling like it took effort, like the ground wanted to keep her. She didn't look back until she reached Nana's side. When she did, Kurriwilban was gone. The clearing lay empty, the stones just stones again, the logs just rubbish. No horns, no towering shadow. Only the faint scent of smoke and something charred lingering like a warning. Nana grabbed all three of them, pulling them close, hands shaking as she ran them over their faces, their arms, their shoulders. "What did I tell you?" she demanded, voice breaking. "What did I tell you about wandering?" Jai started to stammer an excuse. Mikey burst into tears. Lila just stared at the clearing, eyes dry, heart pounding. "She was there," Lila said softly. "Kurriwilban. She wanted them." She didn't say she had felt the horns stop at her skin. That part lodged too deep to come out. Nana followed her gaze, her face tightening. She closed her eyes for a moment, lips moving silently, in words Lila didn't know. "You remember this," Nana said finally, opening her eyes and looking at each of them in turn. "You remember what waits in the dark when you don't listen. These stories, they're not games, they're law." She guided them back up the track. As they walked, the cicadas started singing again, tentatively at first, then swelling into their usual wall of sound. The creek's murmur returned. A kookaburra laughed in the distance, the sound startling but blessedly normal. The bush felt familiar again. Still, every now and then, Lila felt a weight behind her, just for a second, like someone watching from the deeper trees. At the old log, they crossed carefully. On the near side, the track opened back into their usual play space, the yard appearing between trunks like a safe harbor. Nana's hand never left Lila's shoulder. That night, they slept inside with the windows shut, the curtains drawn tight. Nana sat up in her chair longer than usual, eyes on the back door, as if making sure no shape with horns on its shoulders tried to push it open. Years later, when Jai bragged to his friends about that time we got lost out back, he'd laugh and call it nothing, say they just spooked themselves with Nana's stories. Mikey, quieter, would wince and change the subject. Lila never laughed. Sometimes, walking home at dusk, she'd hear a thin, high trill rise briefly from the trees before cutting off. She'd feel a brush of air against her shoulder blades, like horns thinking about dipping, then deciding against it. And she'd remember. Kurriwilban, still walked somewhere out there in the valley. She just didn't walk for girls.